All right, my watch says 7 p.m., so I will call to order this meeting of the Nottingham Planning Board for Wednesday, May 14th, 2025. I'd like to start by going around the room and having everybody introducing themselves, starting with Mr. Severns.
Skip Severns, alternate.
Danny Arsenal.
Chris Evans.
John Decker, BOS.
Drew Stevens.
Dirk Rotenhuis.
Glenn Griswold.
Adam Ryan.
Blair Haney, SRPC.
All right, we have a couple items to address before we get to the public hearings. We need to vote on a new chair, but before that, I was asked to read a letter that was sent to be read at the last meeting, but was not addressed, so I'm going to read that into the record now. This is from Edward Veal, former planning board chair. It has come to my attention that a vacancy has occurred within the elected individuals of the planning board and that a highly qualified resident may offer their services to serve for the remainder of that term. Please consider this email as my support for appointment of Dirk Rotenhuis to the planning board and for consideration for an officer position. As a resident and prior planning board member, having had the fortune of serving with Dirk, I wholeheartedly endorse him for inclusion in the membership. Dirk's professional experience, past planning board leadership, and current membership of the Master Plan Subcommittee are all great reasons to consider him for this role. Thank you for your time and for the board's consideration of Mr. Grotenhuis. Sincerely, Edward Veal, Garland Road. All right, so first order of business is to vote on a new chair.
Can we do a pledge before we do any votes, or?
I think it'd be better if we just move forward with the agenda to get everything taken care of as soon as possible.
Okay.
So we need to vote on a new chair.
Allegiance.
Do we have discussion? Nomination?
I'll nominate Dirk if I can.
I'll second.
Right. We've got a nomination for Dirk Rotenhuis and a second by Glenn Griswold. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? No abstentions? That passes 7-0-0. And I suppose we'll now seat Dirk as the chair and let him take over.
Thank you. I appreciate the vote of confidence from everybody. As others have indicated, this isn't my first time as a chair here. Last time was in 2022, so not that long ago, but long ago enough that I don't remember every code, so I'm going to need some assistance. I do like to try and keep a meeting moving, so if we start dwelling on some things, whether it's an applicant or a member, I might ask them to have a time frame or something like that, so that we can keep moving through the agenda. That being said, we can then just go into, you want me to run
Yeah.
with it, or you?
If you're done, yeah.
Okay. We're, all right, I see we're on, so no problems there. So let me call the first public hearing. This is case number 25-00-3 SIT Nottingham Business Park at 145 Old Turnpike Road. This is a continuance from the previous meeting. There's been a number of meetings in the past, not all that I've been attended to, so I'll need some help in some of that history if we need to. But I was at the last meeting where they presented the site plans, and we've had site plan reviews by CMA, the town's consultant review engineers, and they've gone through multiple reviews, and last I saw was a resubmission of materials to CMA. CMA has reviewed those. The applicant engineer has responded to those. We just got these responses 2 days ago, but I think running through those responses, I'm not sure have we received anything, Blair, back from CMA about?
No.
Okay.
I did speak to Josh, and I can kind of just give my rundown on things when you ask me to, but yeah, they haven't. They would not be able to turn something around that quickly.
Okay. So the other thing that was asked at the last meeting was that a special exception be submitted. I do believe that was submitted.
It was a conditional use permit.
I'm sorry, conditional use.
Yeah, they received a special exception from the ZBA a few months ago.
Very good.
Yeah.
Maybe Blair, you can.
That's fine, you're good. Yeah.
I'm gonna stumble from now on, so why don't you just take
Yeah,
that?
right. All right, so I did send you all on Monday a few items. I sent you a staff report. I sent you CMA's report that they had sent on Friday. And then I sent you MEI's response to that, which they submitted on Monday. I emailed you all on Friday. I thought I attached the CMA document. It was my intent that you could have that for the weekend to look at, but apparently I missed that. So I sent it to you all on Monday. So you did have one email that had everything. And there was a link as well to MEI so that you could get their revised plans and a stormwater report. So that was everything that sort of been brought to us, as well as the conditional use permit that was submitted on the 5th, and Alana sent that to you all. So that's everything that's been submitted since the last meeting of April. Conditional use permit, CMA response, MEI response to that, and then my staff report, all right? So that's kind of all the documents that we're dealing with. In my staff report, which we can take a quick look at, I do outline in the status notes kind of the key bullets that have happened since they had to go to the ZBA for that special exception for the use of manufacturing. Then we did a site walk. We received revisions from the applicant's team. We had our planning board meeting, and then we received, as I said, the CUP application. We received CMA's response memo, and then MEI's response memo. And then I updated the comments from my original review. Now, if you recall, my technical review stays, within the frame of zoning and then the site plan review process. CMA handles all the technical engineering piece. So when I was reviewing it, we talked about waivers, the DRI, and then a few other questions that I had. This group approved their waiver request. We voted that it was not a DRI. It was a DRI 2 submissions ago when it was a larger project, and that went through the process of DRI, but that's not really what's in front of us today. But this time we voted it as not a DRI. I asked about loading docks and stormwater issues and stuff. Those things, the stormwater stuff was reviewed by CMA. The loading dock is going to come down to finding a tenant. And, the applicant has stated that they don't have one, so they really can't complete a lot of the site plan review requirements around parking, number of employees and parking, customers, truck traffic for deliveries and one in or out, that sort of thing. Signage, lighting, these things that we'll know once we have a tenant. So in a lot of ways, this site plan review process kind of hits a wall on that front. And if you look through the report that MEI has submitted, they make notes that we can't complete a lot of these things because of the lack of a tenant. So that also impedes CMA's review, right? There's just information that's not there. So I'm going to cut it off there, and then we can start having some conversation, and we can get a little bit into the back and forth. But I just wanted to bring everybody up to speed about what you have in front of you, kind of what we've done to get to this point. But there's a couple of things that are out there for the board to consider. The conditional use permit being one of them. I went and rewatched the recording, and during it, I think it was Glenn that said, let's make a request that they submit the conditional use permit now, so that we have it if we decide that we believe that the regulation is applicable. I think John was bringing up the fact that it was, the regulation came after the disturbance to the site, right? This is a unique situation. We haven't really dealt with a lot of previously disturbed sites. We usually deal with like virgin land, or maybe it's been logged, or it's an old field or something like that. We don't really tend to deal with a lot of sites that have been previously disturbed. So does that conditional use permit apply, and is there planned proposed work that would be captured by this? It was unclear at the time. They submitted the conditional use permit. Upon review, they meet, the conditions that are needed for that conditional use permit. But the board has to decide, whether it applies or not, and then whether they want to move forward with actually making that part of the approval process. One of the steps is that they have to go to the Nottingham Conservation Commission as part of the process. The Conservation Commission provides feedback on this type of conditional use permit. So that's where we stand on that front. I've spoken to Dale. It's quite clear that building permits are not issued without a site plan approval. When we got into this stage of the process, I think the board, we knew that he didn't have a tenant, and he was asking to put the roof on top to make a more marketable building, which we all understood. But the problem is when you put the roof on, you have the roof drains, knee bone connecting to shin bone, it triggers a lot of things. So what we asked was, we need a stormwater report to make sure that you have a 4-acre sized building and it's got roof drains. Where is that water gonna go? We don't want it to just go scarring through the land because it is unfinished. Is it gonna get to the detention ponds, the 4 bays, whatever it might be? Or can it if you put the things in place? And is everything sized properly? That was the big thing that was sitting over our heads. And they submitted that, that's what's been reviewed. But, then they brought up the use of manufacturing, which led us to, well, you actually need to get a special exception, which is what delayed this process for, 6-8 weeks. So that's kind of how we got, that's where we were starting about what we were trying to review, the request to put the roof on, kind of finish up the building a little bit so they could market it, but then what that does for the community in terms of stormwater management, and then what we have to review internally. So it was sort of like, when I was talking to Josh Bouchard at CMA, he's like, sometimes you can look at it like an interim plan set where you review the portions that you know about, and then you have that final plan set. And so if the board wanted to move forward with a vote tonight, they could condition it that they come back before us with a tenant when that's known. But I'm not trying to get too far ahead. I'm just trying to lay down some where are we at right now? We've got some new members, and we're trying to catch everybody up. So that's kind of what I wanted to say. 2 other things to keep in mind: they, on a state permitting level, they have to get an access permit from DOT to get onto Route 4. That will require them to know who the tenant is, know what their truck traffic's gonna be, what their car traffic's gonna be, all that stuff. So they're gonna have to know those things. When they go to DES for their wetlands permit, their alteration of terrain permit, and subsurface bureau, they're gonna need to know those things as well. So those state agencies are gonna require these things. So there is a path forward where we could, the board could say, condition it on coming back before us to get a final, do an amendment to, let's say an approval, do an amendment to an approval as a final plan set that meets all of, that shows what they submitted to those agencies and that it gets a final review from CMA and signed off and that sort of thing, and that we have a chance to review from our regulatory standpoint all the things around parking and traffic flow around it, fire suppression, signage, lighting, things like that. But again, I'm not trying to push towards the situation. I'm just, here's what your options are.
Do we
So-
know, sorry for interrupting, do we know if those state agencies as well need a approved site plan to do their?
I asked Josh that, and he said no, they don't need those items to render their own decision. They actually don't really pay attention to what we do here. And so, I don't know if that's literal or not, but that was sort of how it was explained to me. Is that kind of how it is?
Yeah.
So, we can request that anything that they submit to these state agencies gets sent to us, and that the final plan sets and stuff gets sent to us. Typically, when we condition a project, we know everything, and we condition it saying, okay, you're good to go here in Nottingham, but you still have to get your state permits. So your Nottingham permit is conditional on getting those state permits. We would kind of be taking an extra step and saying, we're going to condition it, you get those state permits, and then you come back to us because now you know who the tenant is. That would be a way to do it, which would allow them to get a building permit to complete some of the work that they've talked about doing, like lighting and rough plumbing and stuff. You've all seen the building, or most of you have seen the building. Who's ever here for the site visit? So you know what it looks like, you know its size, it's quite massive, and what the site looks like. That's kind of where we are. Went on for a little bit there, but I just wanted to bring you all up to speed because it's been a lot. We've been dealing with this for a while.
So should we talk about the conditional use permit first?
I feel like you should. I mean, you're welcome.
Determine whether it is necessary. We have it, it's filled out. And the purpose of, and this is kind of a question, the purpose of creating this conditional use permit was the change between commercial industrial to warehouse or manufacturing?
No, in 2023, the town adopted a regulation that said there's a 25-foot no disturb zone around wetlands.
Vegetative, this is vegetative.
Vegetative buffer around, and if it's a vernal pool, you can't get a conditional use permit, but if it's a wetland, you can get a conditional use permit to encroach on that 25-foot.
So I actually had a question about that, where a lot of those disturbances are pre-existing before that, regulation came into effect. How does that necessarily affect, what they can and can't do?
I think that comes down to interpretation. That's why I bring it up. I think any lawyer can make an argument either way, right?
What was the date of this application? The original date of this application?
February-ish.
Okay.
February 12th was the first
And that
meeting
was the
of 2024. Oh, 2025, sorry.
the ordinance was already there prior to the
Yes,
application.
that's correct.
Okay.
The disturbances were
there prior.
predated because it was a disturbed site, but yes, the application that we received is February of this year, so after the adoption of that
And
regulation.
the application has those same disturbances or whatever within that
Yeah,
25 feet.
they wrote it in a way that captures everything. I don't even know if we can let TJ or the team speak to this about what is new proposed for disturbance, but they wrote it such that anything old and anything new is wrapped up into the CUP. They didn't really make a distinction.
So
The one thing I will note is that, Alana and I need to talk about this, about editing this application form. The first section, Section A, is applicable to conditional use permits for sort of zoning-related items. This is related, it's a zoning item, but it's a wetland item, so it's actually just the Section B that's really applicable here. as far as review. Conditional use permit to be granted by the planning board for the construction of roads and other access ways and for pipelines, power lines, and other transmission lines, provided that the following conditions are found to exist. So that's the relevant section.
Can we identify or clarify where these buffers are on this project?
Yeah, like I said, I can let TJ speak, or the team speak to that. Because they did add the 25-foot buffer line around all the wetlands, the flagged wetlands on the plans. But as you know, the wetlands are vast on the property. I mean, it's 78 acres. So, I can let him bring that, talk to you about that.
Before we do that, sorry, just a minute. Before we do that, should we not be even including section A?
That's my
Doesn't
understanding.
sound like if it's just section B,
Yeah,
then let's just focus on the things that are in section B.
yeah.
I mean, it sounds to me as if it's our current requirement to have a conditional use permit for this buffer. I would say we should include it. I mean, they've submitted it. I think we should take this in and, accept it and then review it for the contents in section B, right? That's what I think.
That's what I said. I mean, I just wanted to put it out there for the board because it was brought up at the previous meeting. You all discussed it, what is the applicability? So, yeah.
And you're saying that this conditional use permit triggers a requirement to go back with conservation now?
Yeah, they have to go before conservation. I forget what the exact language is, but yeah, they're supposed to go before them.
They don't necessarily need to go before them, but the Conservation Commission is required to provide comment on it. It's
Okay.
usually better if the applicant does go before the Conservation Commission, so they can provide, context and answer any questions, but the wording of, which part is that? Article 2, Section B, Part 6C. Requires the Conservation Commission to provide comments on the conditional use permit.
Right. Yeah, so, section 6 lays out conditions.
And it says all of those conditions must be met in order to accept the conditional use permit.
Nottingham Conservation has provided comments relative to the value of the wetland under construction and design of the proposed project as it relates to the wetland. So the values of the wetland.
And the northern, let me make sure I'm looking at no, I guess it's more like the eastern section of the property has about 9 acres that's deed restricted for conservation area as well, because it does have very sensitive habitat there and abuts silt land over in Barrington too. So I would think it does make sense, especially if there's gonna be any new impacts to the 25-foot wetland buffer, that Conservation Commission at least get some eyes on this and, be aware that that's happening so that they can provide any comment that they may have. I don't see that deed restricted area on any of the plans though.
I know there was a comment of CMA, we can, and they did, somebody gave it, I have it in my file folder, I don't know who gave it to me, but maybe it was them, maybe it was somebody here in this group, but we do have a document about that, and,
Yeah, I believe the original application packet that we got had historic plans from GM2, I want to say, and on those plans, that area was depicted, but that fell off at some point and is no longer depicted on these plans. So that would be, I would suggest that that be put back onto the site plans as well, just so that doesn't somehow get lost in the fold.
okay.
And maybe now the applicant can clear some of that up or answer some of that.
Yeah.
You just state your name.
Good evening, everyone. TJ Melvin with Millennium Engineering. Here with me tonight is the applicant, Tom Moulton for Nottingham Business Park LLC. So I can pull the plans up if you guys want. I know it's kind of difficult to see a board from there, but I can kind of walk through some of the areas of where we're talking about for the disturbance within the 25-foot. It really is kind of coming up the access drive as we have it shown. There's wetlands on either side. A few spots that some of the drainage system is within the 25-foot buffer. The majority of this area is probably bare soil at this point. I know that had been started quite a while ago. So really to access the site at all, we would have to have disturbance within those 25-foot buffers just coming in as it's kind of surrounded by wetlands for the entrance to the site. As we work up the access drive, we pull away from the wetland on the left-hand side of the access drive, and believe all the grading stays just outside it or just falls into it in some spots. You can kind of see that like half circle line. That's the existing tree line that's out there today. So we're proposing all the work to be within that area and not cause any additional tree clearing. And then as we move into the site, as we keep going up the access drive towards the rear parking, we have some wetland areas along the right-hand side. Again, to complete the work for the access drive itself, and some of the grading would fall within that area. Although very little of it would actually fall within the 25-foot buffer. And then the only other spots that we come within 25 feet would be to complete the grading on the downhill side of the access drive around the building, to provide fire access around the entirety of the building. The majority of that slope is in. We are proposing to put a retaining wall in to just get the access drive to the width and to be able to maneuver around the building. And all that area would be loamed and seeded upon completion of any additional grading or installation of that wall. So those are really the only areas that we do fall within the 25-foot buffer. And again, almost all these areas are either bare soil or have previously been cleared as part of this project.
So would it be safe to say that, I mean, this driveway has been here since day one, when this was planned out, and the building and fire access around the building and the location are these existing features is what we should consider, whether they're new or existing. We mentioned the current requirements, and the date of this application, but, I think this access driveway has been here for a long time, and this building has been here for 20 years, and it perhaps predates some of our latest renditions of this buffer. I'm just thinking out loud.
Are the disturbances that are proposed during this work, are they permanent or temporary? Are there going to be new disturbances?
No, if you look at his disturbance, he said it's minimal, as he just described it, it's minimal. Like he said, it's been a pre-existing condition for about 20 years. We haven't done anything new, we don't plan to expand anymore. I mean, it is what it is, it's just really for fire access. That's already been there.
So all of the work that's proposed is in pre-existing?
It's in place and it's pretty much was pre-existing.
Pre-existing disturbed.
What it was, it's been disturbed, years and years ago.
Is it possible that after the work is complete, areas within that 25-foot buffer zone could be vegetated in some way to?
Well, we're gonna lumen seed the slope, I think on the biggest one is on, right, TG's on the,
Yeah, on
on the
access drive.
west side, the access driveway. That's already in place. If you did the sidewalk, we all walked around it. That's what, then that slope's just gonna be loamed and seeded. That's it. And then you shouldn't have to do anything else.
In regards,
Because you want it vegetated, you want some roots to take hold, to hold it. Makes perfect sense. I'd want it, to be honest with you, to be, that's the only way you can hold the soil together.
Right.
so in regards to the retaining wall on the south side of the building, southwest, I'm noting that you've got a couple of areas where it's getting very close to the actual wetlands, and I'm just wondering how you're planning on building that without impacting the wetlands right there.
Actually, it's pretty good the way it is right now. There's no reason for us to encroach and go anymore. I think you might consider it a minimal retaining wall. I don't think you need it because it's already put in. The access drive is pretty stable, you know, and it's wide enough to get done, so there's really nothing that's gonna go into that wetlands other than just, you know,
The
homes.
reason that I'm bringing that up is because on the site walk, there were a couple of areas where it had eroded
It
and
got blown out with a
blown
lot
out.
of the rain,
Yeah.
exactly. That's gonna all be excavated and reshaped and taken back. We had, it's all done, it's all done, so I already did it,
Okay.
already been fixed. So I've been fixed, so after the site walk, the guy fixed it. They had those hot dogs, I call them hot dogs, so
The silt socks.
Silt sock, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
If I may, there's also an existing berm that was built back 20 years ago beyond our area, but still within the wetlands, that when our slope comes down, there's actually another berm that goes up another 5 feet that was done 20 years ago. So, except for one small area, where that breach was that we have now fixed, so, there's almost no need for a retaining wall, except for you guys, but I mean, the slope is less than, I think it's like maybe 4 to 1 or 5 to 1 slope, down on the sides, and other parts of it's almost like a 7 to 1 slope. So it almost, and it goes down to another berm that was built 20 years ago. So it's like almost no area, that whole area along that, whether it be a proposed retaining wall, where the water can even get into the wetlands. Or, I don't even think it's wetlands, is it? It's marginal wetlands. It's very dry out there all the time.
So let me go back to the application of this, and Chris, you had mentioned that, I don't know if you were alluding to that, but maybe the application isn't necessary. I'm just wondering I'm wondering if it is or isn't. And I think that's something that we just need to determine.
It's an anomaly, and I'm sure it's not clearly explained in our zoning ordinance, so it's an existing building, so what if this was all here? Would we say, hey, you need to approve your parking lot, if there's already a parking lot there?
So,
Sorry?
Photo stick.
It gets the attention of everybody.
so let me ask this then. Has the Conservation Commission reviewed the site plans?
No, this has not come before the Conservation Commission at all.
Okay.
At this time
This
or in
would
the
be
past,
anything
is
that would
that,
trigger
would
that.
be,
I'm sure it definitely, well, this project itself, I don't believe it has, right?
I don't know, you know, it's a good question. This was brought in a year and a half ago, we put it on pause. You know, this has been going on for a long time. You know, I think everybody's had a look at it. We've had hydrology studies, we've had wetlands flagged. You know, everybody's had a chance to comment on it. I believe Conservation looked at it, but I gotta be honest with you, I don't know. I can't attest to that, to be very honest, but
You never,
I'm here tonight hoping this thing's gonna get done, because got a lot of money spent out there. I'm trying, we got this off the town's payroll, tax roll, if you will. And I know, I can understand the quagmire, because you got an existing building that was there for 20 years. I don't think it applies to new things today. You gotta kind of find a way to be reasonable to work around it. And we're kind of trying to work within the same footprint, not expand parking, not go anywhere. We're just trying to stay within the boundaries of what it was originally designed for. And if I could maybe make a comment for it's helpful for you or not, one of the reasons we had to go to the zoning board, and I say this with all due respect, the zoning is awful in terms of when it gets to commercial zone. It is, from a developer standpoint, it's so like arbitrary and there's like no really specific things. I guess it can work two ways, that if you do keep it like that, you get to review everything that comes in, but there's really no definition of industrial manufacturing. You go to other towns where I've developed, and they have an outline of what you can do in the zone, you know what I mean? And this was so ambiguous, it's like, so we had to go to them and say, we try to think of the worst case scenario. What is that building really built for? The building is built for a warehouse or manufacturing. It's not gonna be an apartment building, it's not gonna be a playground or a daycare center. It's gonna be an industrial use, and that's typically the kind of tenants I'm trying to go after, people who do manufacturing, warehousing, you know, try to get as minimal impact to the community as possible, get a good tenant in there. And it's a gamble, and it's like the chicken and the egg, right? I mean, I apologize, I can't come in here. I don't know how many employees, I don't know what the traffic is, But I'm a big boy, I can say, look, I'm rolling the dice, I got a lot of money riding out there, and I'm saying, I'm trying to help the community get some tax base, get some employment, but I've gotta find a pathway to at least get this up so I can show it. And, I can't show some fictitious building. If you knew, I sat on it for, and I'm sorry to editorialize it, but I think the color is important for you to understand. That building was a rusted skeleton. I looked at the pictures when I bought it, all right? And I was hoping somebody would come, I showed it to Brazonics, Raytheon, United Technologies. I had some really big tenants, or my tenants in Hampton, to look at it. It didn't show well. It's like looking at a house that's not even built. So I took it upon myself a year or so ago and say, I'm gonna be here 5 years from now, and this building is still gonna look the same. Nobody's gonna look at it. So I went to the town and said, look, I need to, I gotta get it so it at least shows well. Not curb appeal, but get a roof on there, because there's water everywhere, the place was rusting. So all I wanted to do is button up the site, get all the drainage, in place, so we don't, because, Blair made a good point, you got 4 acres of surface area, you gotta manage. And frankly, I stretched it a little bit, because in good conscience, environmentally responsible, I wasn't gonna just take 4 acres of water and blow it and like Blair was saying, just have it run off. So we connected it to the detention pond, because some previous work was done. So the safe is very safe. They might have thrown me in jail, but I would have dealt with it. So the bottom line is, we're just trying to get this stable for right now. And I'm completely fine with you guys asking me to come here when we find out who the tenant is. Certainly gonna design a septic system, right? If there's 100 people there, we gotta design it for 100 people plus. And so it doesn't do me any good. Well, no, I only get 50 people, it's gotta be 100. So it gives you the power to, oversee what I'm doing as we get a tenant. And we're just trying to get a place where it shows well. I apologize for going on, but I thought the color would be a good thing for you to understand what we're trying to do.
Yeah,
That's
no,
helpful.
I appreciate that,
I
yes.
apologize if I talk too much.
And you mentioned one thing, and I actually went by there today after all the rains, and I have to say, this building is amazing.
It is. You guys should be very proud of it.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
And I looked at the existing detention basin. You said the whole 4 acres is dumping into the retention basin?
Well, there's 2 sections. One's going into a retaining pond that I actually spent a lot of money cleaning it up, because it's been there for 15 years. There were saplings in there. So that's all working properly. And we have all the what do they call those, the chambers, Chris? Yeah. On the other side of the building where the access is, all the water goes in there, goes through a stone and a chamber system to basically slow the water down and let it naturally filter into the land, which it's supposed to do. That's all been designed. So we're in good shape that way to get the site stable.
And with all the rain, appears very stable, and
Yeah.
the detention basin number 2 had some water. I've seen a couple lately
Yeah.
that were full.
Yeah.
And doing what they're supposed to do, not overflowing, but
Yeah.
full of water.
It's all been designed to do
And-
that. It
and
works.
It's not even near over there,
Yeah.
so it is doing
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And I'd like to say, I appreciate your, explanation there, and, this is an odd case, right?
Of course, I
Partially
can
completed.
understand
So
your,
we as a board, we need to make sure we're following our regulations too, and making sure nothing falls between the cracks.
No.
So that said, in Article 3, Part B, Section 4, there's a part about non-conforming structures and uses that says any non-conforming use or structure which was legal prior to the adoption of the zoning ordinance or any amendment thereto may continue, and that's in the wetland conservation area. So now, to me, reading that, I believe that all of this, if it is pre-existing disturbance, that would fall under that.
I would
And
agree
so,
with you.
For that reason, it seems, reading this part, that the conditional use permit wouldn't really be necessary as long as there's no additional impacts being
yeah,
proposed.
and we're not doing that. No, I think you're right, Drew. It's just, that's how it, should be looked at, I would think. Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Anybody else have a comment about the conditional use being used or not? Or do we?
I'm just gonna say that I agree with Drew's interpretation of that section of the ordinances. I think that it's not necessary.
I think we maybe should make a motion that we make findings so that, we have a record of that, and, based upon our discussion and so we can move forward.
Yeah. I'd
Got a
entertain a
motion,
motion.
No, you're gonna make it.
I can't.
He's not seated.
It's on you, man.
He's window
You're
dressed, it's
so
on you.
good at it, too. Drew, why don't you, I don't know what the numbers are on that exception thing, so that you,
You're compelling me to make a motion?
I'm
I will
suggesting,
not be compelled, sir. You must make the motion on your own.
I'm making a motion that you make a motion.
Doesn't work that way.
I don't mean to be difficult, but I don't like being compelled to do something, so you're gonna have to do that on your own.
I mean, it could be, you know, it could be a finding at the end if you want, if you don't wanna do it as a motion, it could be a finding, but, I mean, yeah, just.
Why don't you just
like,
make, you
know,
could make a motion that, that the conditional use permit is not applicable to this,
Based upon
based upon section.
Article,
Section
Three.
3,
Section B,
B,
Part 4.
Part 4.
Do we have a second?
I'll second
that motion.
So that was Chris's motion, seconded by Drew. Is that okay?
Yep.
All those in favor indicate aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? There we go. So we don't need a conditional use permit.
7
So let's move on to the other part of that, which is a condition, potential conditional approval, so that the applicant can continue and get a building permit to close up some of the stuff. And we should have some contingent in that condition that, if such is made, that, I think there was,
I have some wording for that, the DOT, access approval and DES approval for the alteration of terrain. Is that the one you're
Yep.
referring to?
DES should include, because when I spoke to Josh, he reminded me that they've got wetlands and subsurface bureau as well. So the AOT and the DOT are the primary ones, because those ones require a lot more from these guys and identification of the tenant and stuff. TJ, is it, on the plans, the latest ones that you submitted are dated, the ones that you sent in the link the other day, on Monday.
512.
Yeah. Do you have the deed restriction?
I do
area?
not. No, but we can certainly submit that,
Right.
even, next week if we need to, prior to doing anything or as a final plan set.
Well,
we
the
can
board,
make that
the
a
board can make
condition
that
of approval.
decision, but I think it's more about it being a condition of approval that, it appear on there. I think for the record, for the final plans, it should be on there.
so if a motion were to be made, it would be for a conditional approval. And something in the, that the applicant shall submit a site plan amendment to the planning board for final review with revised plans after receiving New Hampshire DOT access approval, New Hampshire DES AOT approval, wetlands and subsurface. That would be almost one. And then a second, the applicant shall submit revised plans that address the outstanding comments from CMA's review, dated May 9th,
Correct.
including the applicant's responses referencing a tenant. Oh, making
Yeah,
sure
just
that you,
anywhere where it's like, CMA pointed something out, MEI's response is, well, we don't know the tenant, so we can't respond to that. I didn't know how to word that.
I think it's, you need to make a submission, an amended site plan, once a tenant is determined. Because you won't know any of this stuff that
Right.
we're missing right now.
Yeah.
Once we get that, we can determine maybe truck traffic, employees, parking, septic, all that is, it's like that chicken and egg thing, right? How do you go and build something to attract somebody to come somewhere? You have to do so much, but I understand this is all conditioned on getting that satisfied to the town.
And then Blair, you had mentioned a deed restriction?
Yeah, Drew's the one that
Drew?
pointed it out, and Tia just said it's not on the plans right now, but we just wanna make sure that we get it on the plans for,
Okay, so a deed restriction noted on the plan.
I think it's already there. I think Drew, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you were sitting there and there's some woman sitting next to you one time. We brought up this deed thing, and I remember that there was something there.
Yeah.
it's been
I know.
brought up.
What's that again?
It's
The-
been brought up. I don't,
I do remember that was when we talked,
Yeah.
that there was something there, so I know it's in the deed, so we just have to find it, to your point, Drew, and put it on the plan, so it's there completely makes sense.
And CMA had called it out in their most recent response as well, that it was not shown on the
Okay, so
plans.
it's on CMA's comment letter?
That's
I
correct.
mean, if the deed is there, it's gotta be in the deed.
Yep.
It's gotta be in the deed, so we can put it on. It's just-
So as long as it's in CMA's comment letter, then we're covered with that condition.
One other thing that I noted in CMA's,
Original plan.
I think so, right.
one other thing that I noted in CMA's plans is that it was said that a traffic study had been given to the board, and CMA said that they did not have a copy of it.
Well, if we got one, we can get them one, that's all right.
Yeah, no, I knew we had submitted everything.
it's been,
There was definitely a
That was
traffic
done.
study, right?
Yeah, I paid for
I
it.
just,
know we did.
I noted it in their response, so.
Yeah, and I
We
know,
paid for one, so it's there somewhere.
Will a new traffic study be required once a tenant is identified? If it's a
Probably,
tenant that has
I
a,
think the traffic study they did was almost, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, I think my attorney, Tim Phoenix, I think what we did is try to get the worst-case scenario, and then have the traffic study map kind of profile the worst-case scenario, and I think that's what they did it on.
and a lot of times what we've seen is, if we're going to a lesser use, they might just write a memo that kind of they usurp into the full traffic study if it's a lesser demand than
Right.
what it was done for.
I think we did to the worst case, and then obviously, based on what the use would be, manufacturing warehousing. So,
In worst case would have been essentially to reflect the 26 stores that exist
Yeah,
and
right.
some of that kind of stuff.
yeah,
So in other towns, you I know you have a lot of big stuff in big towns. We're just a small town.
I like the small town, believe me.
Thank you
I
for
don't
being
like
here
big
and
towns.
doing
No,
a great
I'm
job.
trying to help everybody, myself and the town community, you know.
When you change over a tenant, you're going back to the planning board for review and site plan for each individual
Yeah,
tenant
it's,
or change of
yeah, if I
use?
had a tenant, like, you know, like I've had Raytheon, United Technologies in Hampton, when they leave, depending on the new tenant, I'll go back to the town and get, an updated use permit.
Would that-
Change of use.
Change of use.
Change of use, that's right. Dirk,
And
yeah.
would that sometimes require an updated traffic study? Or,
In my case, I've never had to do that, but I guess it depends on the situation, right? If it's a lesser use than what the existing tenant was, you probably wouldn't have to do it. If I got 30 trucks coming in, and the new tenant has 15 trucks, you probably cover it. If you go from 30 to 60, hey, maybe we gotta look at it. But that's if you change tenants. I wanna get one tenant for a long time, and I hope I'm dead before they leave. My kids will have to worry about it, and I won't have to do anything with it. Yeah, you and I are going together. They'll bury us out there.
there's a cemetery right behind.
so could we also condition that any revised plans, after tenant is found, include either a memo referencing the existing traffic study and that the existing traffic study is adequate for the tenant? Or that a, new traffic study be completed if the tenant's activities are somehow larger than what the existing.
Perfectly reasonable, yeah.
so
perfect.
we don't have one for this submittal as part of this. I don't have anything in my files, but they're gonna have to submit one for their DOT.
Yeah,
Right.
So that's why we're gonna get it, is because normally we would condition it that you gotta go do that stuff. We've already reviewed our thing, but we're not able to review our thing. So we want them to move past us in a sense so that they can do the building permit stuff and do their state permitting and then come back to us.
So we'll get a traffic study with the revised plans after they go through all that anyway. So this is kind of putting maybe the cart before the horse
Yeah.
type of deal. We're
See-
not gonna miss out on a traffic study when it comes back to the board.
Same with the stormwater report, because AOT is gonna require it. They're gonna have to do their HydroCAD and all their BMP worksheets and stuff like that. So, we're just gonna see it after instead of before.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll, just for the HydroCAD, the stormwater report, that we have submitted and CMA
have it
has
now,
reviewed. As far as AOT, yeah, we'll be submitting it to them and they ultimately have to approve it as well.
So Blair, was there anything, where you've been going back and forth between the CMA? It's initially, I thought we were mostly doing the stormwater management, but there's several other items in here. Anything glaring, sorry to say that, that sticks out or jumps out as far as another condition that we should be looking at down here?
No, I had a long conversation with TJ, and then I called Josh, after that, and spoke to him for a while as well. Try to get a sense of, what their response was on the stormwater side of things, and then talk to Josh about it. And he didn't, we're the ones that, we kind of worked through this idea of a motion that could bring it back to the board. So, because he didn't think that there was anything overwhelming, but there was still a lot of things outstanding in his memo. So it's not like he could sign off, oh yeah, you're good to go. But as long as we condition it properly, which I think we're, kind of heading towards, I think we're fine. So no, there's really nothing. When I talked to TJ, the only change to the stormwater design that involved a design and it wasn't like a mislabeled thing was they lowered one outlet structure in the infiltration basin. So the changes from Friday to Monday were minimal. So CMA has seen 90% of the design. Now they were missing some worksheets that didn't allow them to confirm a lot of things, but he felt like this stuff's gonna have to come out for AOT regardless. But then if we have them come back to us, which is, looks like is the plan, then CMA will be able to see it again, meaning the town sees it again, CMA will therefore see it again. So it's a long way of saying no. Josh did not point out anything that was like, a showstopper.
So one of the other things that was mentioned in his memo is the environmental impact study, which I know that'll have to happen as part of AOT. So, I'm not super concerned about it, but I just wanted to bring it up that was another thing that was mentioned in CMA's report.
Yeah, the regulations, we have the right to ask for one. The board has not asked for one, given the previously disturbed nature of the site, but yes, they will have to submit something with AOT.
Does anyone want to put a motion together?
I'll make a motion that we conditionally approve case 25-003, site plan Nottingham Business Park at 145 Old Turnpike Road, and accept that with the conditions that the applicant shall submit a site plan amendment with revised plans after receiving DOT access approval and DES approval for alteration of terrain, and approval from the DES Wetlands Bureau and the Subsurface Division. And then another condition that once a tenant is identified, that revised plans shall be submitted which address all outstanding comments from CMA that are dated May 9th, 2025, and including all applicant responses referencing a tenant. And then a third one, that the deed restricted conservation land be shown on the site plans going forward. Any submitted site plans going forward.
A motion, is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, did you note DOT in there?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right, I didn't check it off.
No discussion? All those in favor indicate aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Very much appreciate it. We'll do a good job for you, promise. It's my reputation on the line. I always try to do a good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I can see why Chris wants you to do the, what do you call it, the motions, because you're good at it. Very thorough. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's continue on to
That
our,
means we can go to Dale now, right? I'm gonna be on his doorstep tomorrow morning today. He already knows I'm coming. Thank you, Blair.
Yeah, no problem.
Hey, guys.
we're gonna move on to other business. This case is, what do you call it, case?
Just so I'm clear on this, we're brushing the pledge under, we're just gonna walk right over the pledge on this one? Just so I know moving forward. The Pledge of Allegiance that we skipped. We disrespected the flag on TV and on YouTube. We skipped right over it.
I mean, it was something that Teresa brought to the table that hadn't been done prior, but, you know, whatever the board wants to do.
So it has to be mandatory to pledge allegiance to the flag? It has to be like a voted-in thing? I'm just wondering. It felt disrespectful to do it. That's, especially when it's something we've been doing and then just brushed it under the rug. Can I make a motion to do it, if anyone wants to join me? And I don't understand why it's a problem to do it.
Well, it's not a problem, it's just right in the middle of the meeting. And,
It shouldn't have been.
well, I have never done it before in my tenure. I didn't realize that was a thing that was done here.
Yeah,
So I
we've been doing
apologize for
it.
that. We had 2 meetings where it was done. Prior to that, it had not been done, and these meetings run very long anyway, especially doing it in the middle of the meeting.
Less than a minute to do it, but if it's not something we're gonna do anymore, then okay, if you guys wanna do that. Thank you.
All right.
Can we push that for the next meeting then? Because we're.
Yes, as long as we bring it back, and that is something we make a habit of doing.
Sure.
Thank you.
Discussion for that, yeah.
Well, should we finish up if there's a motion and a second, that we determine that that's something that we should be doing at each meeting?
I'd like to make a motion, may I? I'd like to make a motion that the Pledge of Allegiance is done at the opening of our meetings as a planning board. And if I get a second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
And that it be identified on the agenda?
Yeah, I think
And that it
that's
be
probably,
identified in the
yeah,
journal.
good point,
That
Skip.
way it doesn't get late.
There's a motion and a second for the Pledge of Allegiance prior to
Mr. Decker seconded.
the meeting in the call to order.
Yeah,
Those
call-
in favor
call the
indicate
roll,
aye.
pledge of-
Aye.
Those opposed? I'm gonna abstain.
I'm abstaining.
Is that a negative or
I'm abstaining.
abstaining? Okay. So you've got,
Yeah, so it was-
Abstained also.
okay, so 2, I didn't get your vote, so.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a
It's 4
positive
yes.
vote of 4 to 3.
So-
4, 3 abstaining,
Right, 403, so yeah, it would pass.
so that would pass.
Thank you, gentlemen.
And I do want to point out that it is voluntary. It's not mandatory.
Yeah, that's fine.
We're not going to make people do things that
Nope.
aren't.
Absolutely not. That's not what this country's about.
All right, so we'll continue on with our business then. Case number 25009, parking review for multifamily Evans.
So that's me, so I'm gonna jump off the board here, recuse
And
myself.
so while Chris
As a-
recuses himself, I'll appoint Skip as the alternate, as a full planning board member. And I don't know if I need to go through this application, but do you want to just give the description? I think you touched on it last meeting, so,
Yeah.
you know, you can probably just summarize what that was.
Yeah, just a 10-second recap. We have existing building on about 3 acres, and we're looking to add an additional unit apartment there. You know, I'm working to try to get my son some affordable housing in some place, living nearby. And so I looked through the zoning ordinance to do this, and we have a section called conversion, and it identified that you can convert an existing building. But what it also did is it exempted that from site plan review regulations, and the site plan review regulations were also exempting a duplex or 2-family. So it's kind of an odd glitch in our zoning to, so when I went to see the building inspector, he said, well, in the zoning ordinance, it says the planning board shall review parking requirements. And because it says that, he didn't feel comfortable issuing a building permit without planning board review. But there was no site plan review process, applicable subdivision process. We have non-binding conceptual discussions, but nothing for parking review. So, yeah, we should probably think about future, fixing that, odd discrepancy in the zoning. So I'm hoping tonight that, you can, based upon the criteria under the conversion, and I don't know the numbers of it, Drew probably does.
It's on here.
Huh?
It's on here.
Oh, okay, thank you. There was, on the conversion, there was 3 or 4, or 7 or 8 criteria, A through H. And 2 of them, one of them said that, there's adequate parking, found by the planning board, that it's an existing building before, this is a building built in 1974. So I did put a whole list of, items together previously. I don't actually have that, or I may in my folder, I have to go dig it out. Some of the conditions were that it's an existing building, which it is. The lot size is not required under this conversion, which it's 3 acres. Normally this would require 4 acres, but it's exempt from that under the second condition. That it meets septic requirements. So we had a new septic design that approved by the state that covers the septic requirements. That if there's any improvements made, such as adding a dumpster, a fire escape, other things like this, perhaps on a bigger building, maybe if you took one of these big farmhouses and converted it into, 6 or 8 apartments, and there's a stairway outside, that those are located out of sight and out of the neighborhood, but all the changes on this building are internal. It's basically, we're adding a kitchen on the lower level unit, so there's no changes to the site itself. So it really boils down to, is there adequate parking? So we have a 2-car detached garage, and then a plan here that showed 9 parking spaces, and existing on the site, and a couple that we're adding, just some additional gravel parking for overflow. I actually own a couple of boats, and we'll probably park my trailers there, to be honest, because I don't have room at my other home. So I wanted to have a couple extra spots. So there's more than adequate parking for this, and it's all existing. So just looking for your acknowledgement of the parking for Dale, so that he can issue a building permit.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
All right, in the permit, you said add 5 additional spots, gravel or paved parking spaces, and you identified 3, 8, 9, and 10 are new. 1, 2, 5, 6, and 7 are existing. Then there's a note here that says number 5 will be discontinued, 9 spaces total. So I was a little confused by that, because the numbers didn't.
And it seems like it's 8 total, right?
I thought they were,
But if I'm looking at this, it looks like 1 and 2 are in the garage.
mhm.
And then if I look at 3 and 4, they're like in front of the house?
Yes, an extension of the existing
So-
driveway.
So that's extended out from this picture you gave us last time? It wasn't, you're extending this further this way?
Yes,
Okay.
and part of the reason to do that is there was a garage under, which,
That's the one that's 5 that's going away.
that we're looking to, get rid of. It's just an odd, it's better as living space.
So I guess my question is, in these spaces here,
Mm-hmm.
this is your existing driveway, so you're just extending this to have 2 spots here?
Correct, well, yeah, that,
So that you
Yes.
could still drive past?
yes, you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's, I guess, what. Alright,
So is it a total of
so.
8 total parking spaces or
It-
9?
There are,
So it
9.
should be, so it should
with the
be-
garage under being discontinued. That was a change that
So it
was
should
done at
be-
the last.
So 3 and 4 are new,
Mhm.
so 3 and 4 are new, 5 is the one that goes away. There's numbers are so small.
Yeah, 6 is the garage under.
I thought that was 5.
Oh, maybe it is 5.
So in his
Six and
application, number 4 is missing from it, so I think that's what you're missing. Out of all of them, in
Four
the
is
new
missing.
ones, it only
Right.
says 3, 8, 9, and 10. 4 is left out,
Okay.
and then in the existing, there's no 4 there either, so I think it was just a,
Yep, okay, so 4 is the one that's missing.
I got it, all right.
Oh.
Yep. So there's 9 total
Yes.
that will remain, or that will be there.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve case 25-008, parking issues, or parking approval for 5 McCrillis Road.
I'll second.
Motion second, any discussion? The application says 9 parking spaces, so that probably doesn't need to be in the motion, so I think that's good. All those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And ayes have it, 7-0.
Just another note,
Too
I don't
late,
know.
you're already approved.
You're approved.
No,
Stop.
Your approval to run, son.
If you want to talk about the process, to get it on the agenda for a future meeting.
no, we will. I'm just gonna say, I don't know if we need to add to that this is, it's actually a change of use is what
That
is-
would be a different application.
That's a different,
Chris.
See,
Tap me back out again.
All right.
take the win.
All right, next on the agenda is CIP appointment.
And for the record, we're gonna have to figure out how to do this in the future of these conversions. Might have to come up with a form or something like that.
Yeah.
yeah,
Add that to the growing list.
it's a little messy. It's, yeah, when you study it and try to like say, how does this apply? And it's probably frustrating to a lot of the people that come forward in the community, you know, with the zoning application. They come with expressing how, you know, there's a lot of vagueness and ambiguity, so, in the commercial section.
So, can I ask a question of you in regards to that? Why you didn't wanna make it, attached dwelling unit? Is it because you're not, the owner
I
isn't gonna
don't
live there?
live there.
Well, but you kinda could at some point while you're still owner. I mean,
One of the ADU requirements is that one of the units is owner occupied.
understand, but he also said it was going to his son to provide, and the capability could have been there to do that without any.
If the son was a co-owner and wanted to have him.
No, I'm just asking the question, that's all.
CIP appointment.
Yeah,
Right, so Skip is the one
Skip?
that's, yeah.
I put that out there, I'm already it, but I'm not it because I wasn't on the board. Now I'm back on the board, so I could be it if you guys choose to.
Someone make a motion to,
You want to be it?
I just want to make one
sure,
additional
yes,
comment.
please.
Skip doesn't have to be the only one, so we could have multiple planning board members on CIP committee. So I would appreciate Skip being one of them at least.
I nominate Skip to be one of the planning board CIP representative.
Second.
Okay, second. Is there any other
But either
members that might want to be on the CIP? Because it can have more than one.
We're planning on starting early, which is why this came up, because we're gonna have a meeting last night,
No,
or Tuesday night,
tomorrow night.
tomorrow night. And so it was like, I think we got that.
We gotta get the,
I think we got
we gotta get the,
some
Horse
extra
before
stuff
the cart.
going. But we're trying to do it before the whole, well, not the whole budget
Well,
season,
budget
but most of the
season
budget
really.
season gets cranked up. So last year, we were all doing it at the same time, and it was crazy. This time we're doing it, attempting to do it ahead of time.
It's prudent. And
It seems like it might be, we'll see.
same thing with zoning updates, you know, if we want to make any changes or, you know, clarifications or something, you know, we should work on that sooner instead of waiting till there's 2 months and jamming them in and that's,
Yeah, that portion is kind of a catch-22, because if you do start making decisions, then you kinda need to have the public hearing. And once you do the public hearing, then they're invoked. So,
You can only do the public hearing so far out. But that's another thing. I mean, we gotta, you know,
yeah.
Okay, so we have one nomination. Doesn't sound like we have any other volunteers or nominations.
I don't mind helping out if they could use an extra hand, I'll volunteer to help out.
That's up to you.
Yeah, count
Okay,
me
so we
in.
now have two.
Okay, put you on the list.
So there'll be
Do we need a
two,
second
I'll
motion?
extend my nomination to
okay,
Thank you, gentlemen.
Ryan as well.
Thank you.
second.
okay, same second. Those in favor, indicate aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Those opposed, you guys are now on the
Good
CIP committee.
job.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
We can carpool.
The unseen advantages.
With Gene Reed. I mean, the three of us could.
All right, review of bylaws is on our agenda. Has everybody reviewed them?
I would suggest not looking at the copy in the back of your binders, because I've just found that it is not the updated bylaws that we made some changes to. Oh, I got one from 2022, even older.
I pulled this out of the back binder.
And I realized that because when I looked at the printed out versions, I went to the very back page and I had a penciled in note, or sorry, I went to page 10 and had a penciled in note on section 4 that said findings of fact. And then the the planning board bylaws that were emailed out by Alana or Blair,
Geez, I made all my notes.
it now has part C, section 4 that says that all decisions of the board shall include a findings of fact, so you might not have the most recent version.
Apparently I don't.
Yeah.
Well, this one says it.
Does it? Okay.
Mine
Well,
says it.
I guess mine is updated.
I pulled mine out of the,
April 24th, 20.
Yeah, but if you
So-
go to that.
You go to that
page 10,
section.
hey, look,
Page
I got
10.
a newer one in the back now after I.
Oh,
pulled
do I
it
have
out.
two copies? I might have two copies then. Huh?
I have my copy more.
April
Yeah.
24th.
I think I do have two copies.
I have no copies.
I ignore
No,
everything
no,
I
no,
just said.
don't ignore, because it still says April 2024.
But that was when it was last amended.
Right.
We amended it early on last year, right around this time, to add those things.
Oh,
So
okay.
I had flipped back to the one that we were going off of
Okay.
then, that I had made notes on, and that I still have in here.
I think that's what I did. I pulled out the old ones and the new ones got put in.
So,
Because we knew, we were supposed to talk about it.
so last year when we did the reviews, we relied, somewhat upon, Ed to, point out some things that were not functioning.
He had a running list, yeah.
He had a shopping list,
And I think
and,
we addressed pretty much all of them then.
yeah, we
We added the secretary as a member that could chair, we did the
All
findings
kinds
of
of
facts, a
odd-
couple other small things,
Does-
housekeeping things.
housekeeping. So,
Are those in here?
They are, they're in the amended April 24th, 2024 version.
So are we good to move these forward, or is there more changes that,
well, that's
Are
what I was
necessary.
gonna, shout out with Drew right here, do we recall anything that in our bylaw process that was,
I can't
Funky.
recall from, since amending these April 24th, 2024, I have no recollection of the board bringing up any other bylaw issues that may be addressed, during this period. So, at least for me, I don't think there's anything, and I don't have anything in the bylaws that I've seen that need to be changed, but
I kind of agree with that basically. The only thing I would like to do, it doesn't have to be right away, or it can't be right away anyway, is I would like to go through and edit the verbiage out of these that's redundant upon the state laws. Because there's so much duplication in here of just state RSAs that shouldn't actually be in the bylaws.
I think it can sometimes help instead of, you're saying just to reference RSA blah blah colon blah blah, and then you have to go look it up yourself.
Right, because
Find a
otherwise you
helpful
have to
cheat sheet.
change the bylaws constantly whenever the laws change.
I think, yeah, I'm kind of torn on that because I know that.
I'd like to have it in one
quite a bit,
place
but
'cause
I
you can
like
read
the
it.
context
Yeah,
of knowing what it is.
And I get that, I understand that, I just think it's a bad habit.
One thing that we could do is, simply add as amended into the bylaws, and so that it keeps up to date with the most recent versions of the RSAs.
One of the odd things the state changed the definition of abutters last year, and we kind of caught that a little late in our process, and it was past the point, I was just talking with Skip, where we could actually discuss changing the bylaws and getting it on the agenda and having a meeting and a discussion and then voting to amend that on the zoning ordinance. So we kind of deferred to, well, it's on the applicant's burden to, properly follow the state law for that, instead of having
also keep
it
abreast
correct
of
in our own ordinance. But we should, perhaps we want to update that. And, there's all kinds of changes coming out of the state this year too, for changes that we're gonna have to react to. And
But that's a zoning amendment, that's not a bylaws amendment, right?
Right.
Right.
that
In that
one,
particular
I guess,
case.
yeah, so I'm kind of concurring. If you're saying you want to leave the RSAs in there, or you want to take those out?
Well,
Wants to
I'm
take out.
okay with referencing to the RSA. We will do business in accordance with RSA blah, 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 or whatever. Some of that we shouldn't even have to say, honestly.
Well,
I don't know if anybody got a chance to look at some of the other towns, ones that Alana forwarded,
Yeah,
but,
Barrington's one page, I think.
yeah,
It's like,
I think it was true, but whatever.
this,
It's like a couple of them were nice and,
yeah. I agree with you.
One of the things, like, for example, in Barrington, they have a full-time planner,
Right.
who's like just there 40 hours a week on top of stuff. I help you out as best I can, but I know what you're saying, but I think, the board has leaned on them and what's been in there a few times. Because, this group changes a lot. But
What I like about this is that it's a quick reference, as long as, there's a lot of RSAs in here, and as long as those are kept up to date,
right, that's,
I don't have a problem with it. As long as it's kept up to date. And I was trying to see if there was a pattern here. These seem to be April and March,
yeah.
and it seems like every year, it seems like it happens, except the April and March doesn't seem like the right dates for it to happen. Isn't it July or something like that when
So I don't
the
know.
laws
and that's-
change?
Without actually going through
Yeah.
the RSAs and comparing them, we're not sure what we're actually
Yeah.
saying.
But it's a quick
So-
reference here.
Right,
You can
and-
go to election of officers and say, oh, okay, RSA these go up, and then go look at
Well,
it.
right, exactly.
that
I'm
part's
good
good.
with saying,
Yeah.
whether, in accordance with RSA XYZ,
Right,
we do this, and you look it up in the book.
yeah.
so I think what we changed last year actually came to pass, where Teresa withdrew and Drew was out on surgery, and boom, who's the chairman? We voted in to default the secretary as third on the hierarchy or whatever we want to
Chain of
call it.
command,
Huh?
chain of command.
And I think
Yeah.
the reason that was originally suggested was because there were instances previously with previous chair and vice chairs where there were conflicts of interest that would cause either, if one of them was out and the other one had to recuse themselves, it wasn't clear who exactly would, chair the meeting.
Right, who
So
would-
we added that back in just to make it clear that the secretary would be the next in line.
Yeah, that
And
stuff
that's-
makes perfect sense to be in the bylaws.
Yeah.
So as of last year, we made a bunch of changes that had been recognized as needing to be done, and I don't recall anything that came up last year, so I think we can say, let's, keep it the same and move forward? Is that what we want to
Yeah.
say?
And then we can certainly take it up,
Right.
maybe a little bit longer.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was
Scheme to-
basically saying. We should keep going with what we have,
Yep.
whatever, verify that we,
Because it would take, definitely a back and forth between the RSA. It would take a bit of time just to
right,
confirm it,
exactly.
yeah.
That's why
yeah.
I said I was willing to do that, just it's gonna be
Yeah,
not until like July.
August.
And when what happens in the state is all, new bills are submitted early in the year for zoning and planning and state law changes. They go to either the Senate or to the legislator, they get voted on, and then they eventually go over to the governor's desk, and they kind of pop out from July till like September or something like that. So maybe we could react if we see something that triggers that at a later point.
So let me ask another question. Do we need to do anything if we're not amending them?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I don't
we
think
don't,
so.
we don't have to adopt them because they're already adopted.
They're already
Right.
adopted.
Okay. So good, we're on to the next agenda?
Next.
Should I make the suggestion that we take the next two items out of order and swap them because Part E might influence Part D? As far as timing goes?
Sure.
Yeah, that seems fine. So, meeting times.
So I guess one comment that I'd like to make is we should be signing those at some point in time.
Yes.
So,
Well, no, we don't have to, yes, we do have to sign them.
yes, so it would seem logical that we would identify to Alana or something to have a copy ready for the next meeting to
Yep.
sign or something like that, put it on the agenda,
Yep.
something to that effect.
This is for the
Bylaws,
bylaws.
yeah.
Well, then maybe we should make an official motion that we're gonna keep them the same and that we'll sign them at the next meeting.
You keep saying we should make an official motion. Go for it.
Did you just do that?
I just made we should
I'll
keep
second
them the same, yes. Sign them off at the next meeting. Vote,
Second, vote, aye,
Yeah.
okay,
sign, next,
good.
official record.
So meeting
Thanks,
times.
Jeff.
So it's been, I guess,
No, sorry.
discussed of having different meeting times for this meeting, and I'm new, so maybe the 7 o'clock isn't working, maybe it's because it's running late, I don't know.
Sometimes it runs very late.
So is there a suggested meeting time? Is that 6:30, is that 6, is that?
It's both of those. I don't think we should go before 6.
No.
But it was put forth at a meeting or two ago about potentially moving it earlier to 6 or 6:30. And it's just a matter of the board deciding, what they want to do. I think Drew had pointed out, Drew pointed out that the Conservation Commission just moved theirs. So there really isn't any rule that you have to follow, but that's what we talked about. Or that's what was suggested, I should say.
We wanna get you home earlier, sir.
I would love to do that,
Right, so let's move
especially
it-
in the winter. But
Let's
yes.
move back to 6:30.
So, well, let's talk about the two times then.
Oh, okay.
Does anybody want 6 o'clock?
I would prefer 6.
Do I get a vote?
Either?
You're not gonna like my answer, but I like where it is now, because I get to have dinner with the kids and all that, and everyone's sleeping when I get home. Half hour earlier isn't gonna make anything different for me, everyone's sleeping by the time I get home anyways. But at least by 6:30 or 7, I can still enjoy dinner with my family, before I come here, and don't have to like rush out. But everyone's got a different situation, so this time works for me personally. I wouldn't mind bending and going to 6:30 with everyone, but 6 would be pushing it for me, but
Yes.
That's
I
what the
would
vote's
mind
for.
6 o'clock, pushing it to 6:30, that'd be consistent with select board. I can make that if I have to go in the office. If I have to go in the office, 6 o'clock is not gonna.
6:30 works for me too, because, like
Yeah, I don't
you're
mind meeting
saying,
in the middle.
having dinner with the kids and taking care of goats and things like that.
Nottingham things.
More kids, yeah.
Sorry, I had to.
So while everybody was somewhat warm on the 6 o'clock, it sounds like it's a little bit hotter on the 6:30. Is that?
I'd be fine with 6:30, especially because I don't want to impinge upon people's quality.
Yeah, I'm happy to meet in the middle.
6:30 okay?
Yeah. Fine.
All right,
I'll make a motion that we move our meeting time to 6:30 PM on Wednesdays, every second and fourth Wednesday of the month.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a little bit of discussion, maybe I'd like to add a twist to this. Can we have a cap time? Is there suggested cap time? Where and let me just state, because I've done this in other, or it has been done in other communities that you said, a time where you make a decision whether you want to continue to finish out the night, or you have to continue, you just continue everything to the next meeting.
So with that, I agree completely. But I think we have to communicate to the
Yes.
appointments that this is your slot. You know, if they request, they should be coming to us with a requested amount of time that they think they need. And
Well, that's really hard to determine because, you know, it's the board's communications
Right,
that
I
end up,
understand that, but
yeah.
So one thing that one of the towns that I do work in does is no new business is accepted after 8:30. They start at 6 o'clock. So if we wanted to say, you know, we are not going to accept any new business after 8:30 or 9 or something along those lines, then, you know, we can give ourselves that leeway while still making it so that we can get home at a reasonable hour.
So to clarify, does that mean if you have 3 items on the agenda, you won't start the 4th one if 8:30 is approaching?
Correct.
It could be a continued item from a previous meeting, but you're just not gonna start any new items, discussing new items. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Just nothing new gets started after 8:30 or 9 o'clock.
I've heard both
or-
of these, yeah. A cap, I've heard where you vote whether you want to continue going. And I've also heard, you know, he was suggesting about not starting anything after a certain time.
Is this just for cases, or is this also for, you know, any of the other business?
I mean, it would be,
Approval.
I mean,
I've seen it for all
Yeah.
kind of
cases.
apply
so-
to
Gotcha.
everything, but I guess it's whatever you want it, however you want it to do it.
And it may not have to be in a motion, like it's specific, and maybe we can just integrate and try a couple things, but, I don't think there's much use of a meeting that's past 3 hours. There's just
Yeah, you
too
get
many
brain
people.
dead. We've
you
had
can-
a couple that were that long,
just-
and we were all like, in-
It
Yeah.
glaze over and
Yeah,
starts
glaze.
Yeah.
cooling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
right. but-
Even 2.5 hours,
Yes, I
we
agree.
always have to give
I
us
would-
south a little bit.
I would say 9 PM is a good ending time for a meeting that starts at 6:30 PM.
It is, and I think it makes people really think about the things that they're gonna offer to the room. Does this need to be said, or, you know, am I offering anything new, or am I just reiterating?
I don't know if that's gonna.
But I do see the fairness in applicants, right?
right,
So
and having-
it's important. I don't know, it's so hard, I don't think we can make appointments. It is how it is on the agenda, like, it should be the continued first, and then new business, the
Yes.
newer applications afterwards. And if they're not gonna be heard, then they go to the next meeting. And that's kind of an industry standard, that happens all the
If
time.
that's the industry
Overflow.
standard, that's
Yeah.
fine.
And, but we would notify, like, if we're into our second, and there's 4 on the agenda, and we're into the second at 8:30, we will probably tell that applicant
So-
that we're probably not gonna get to you tonight.
yeah.
Can we move some of these other housekeeping items to the beginning of the meeting? Like approval of previous minutes. You know, basically, we don't hear, so if we start at 6:30, maybe our first case wouldn't happen till 6:40 or 6:45 or something.
And piggybacking on that too, how would we ensure that there's room for public comment at every meeting?
Well, each thing
Well,
has,
we could vote whether we continue or not, like Blair was
Well, I'm
saying,
talking
so
about
it'd be
the general,
situational.
Not the case-specific public comment, because that would be rolled into every, you know, case itself, but, you know, part V that we have on our agenda here is general public comment. I'll also say we very rarely ever have any
Yeah.
general
Right.
public comment here,
Right.
so I don't think it's actually gonna be an issue. But I also think it's important for us to reserve time in case there is somebody who wants to come before us.
So if we had something where, like, for example, there's no new business after 8:30, but the time period from, you know, 8:30 till 9 o'clock is available for public comment, or something along those lines.
I was gonna say the same things, a little bit different, like if you decide 9 PM is your hard cap, you know, you can say, all right, we're gonna close it at 9, but we're gonna leave ourselves 10 minutes to, you know, to do the wind down, do the public comment, something like that. So like, the cases end at 9, but you're gonna leave yourselves 10 minutes or something like that, and that's
Or
just,
15.
that's just sort of known.
And we could see, I mean, if we're in the midst of one and we're 98% through, then we could say, let's, you know, go past the 9 o'clock. I was in a Manchester planning board and they said, it was 9:20 and they said, we end at 9:30 and you're up to bat. And, I said, 1 minute, and did something in 1 minute. Hard to
Really?
believe, right?
That's
I know, hard to believe.
Wow.
Hard to believe.
And
You
that's
said it
what
was only gonna take 10
that's my
seconds
personal
up there.
opinion about having time slots, is I've seen cases that were way too complex, but given a half-hour slot.
Yep.
You're right.
And the board will render a decision, because they feel like they're boxed in, and I don't like seeing that.
Yeah,
For you guys, for the public, for the applicant, I don't think it's
Right.
fair.
yeah.
I understand the idea behind it, because it lets
Right,
people.
yeah, no, I was suggesting that it would then have to be continued.
Yeah. But that's just my
All
thoughts.
right, well, it's out on the floor, so, I mean, we don't need to have it as the motion. I think it's more important that we have,
Let's make a motion for, and it, oh, there
I
is.
will amend my motion, that, you know, the meetings start at 6:30 and that they end at 9 PM with 15 minutes after that reserved for public comment and wind down.
Second?
okay, any more discussion? Vote? All those in favor? Aye?
Right?
Another good motion, Drew.
It's flawless,
Motion
flawless execution.
So now, how does that pertain to
And that should be added to the bottom
section
of the
D?
agenda.
Right.
That note should be added to the bottom of the agenda.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just so people that are,
That's
Here,
an
should know
excellent
that.
point. Yes.
thank you.
Meeting as, yeah.
There are already notes down there. I don't think anybody reads them. but it's,
But if it's in there, then we can say, didn't you read the notice? It's right there.
One thing, does anybody, and, you know, this would be an Alana question, you know, if you're here. What do we have for our next meeting in May?
We have the subdivision Deerfield Road, and so that is something
Yep.
that we need to address because that was continued to 7 PM on May 28th. Is that the next one? So
We can
we can
start
still
it,
hold it
Yeah.
at that time, but we can start the meeting at 6:30
Yep.
and perhaps go through minutes and other things before
I
that.
like that idea.
okay, so, I will make a note, I'm putting a list of what we decided on tonight and sending it to Alana, so that's what I'm gonna tell her. This 6:30 will start at our next meeting, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And this presentation from LRAC, next meeting, first item on agenda for next meeting, question mark. That's, they would be okay to go at 6:30 or 6:45?
So Blair, do you know that Suzanne Peterson has confirmed that she is available for that next meeting? The last I heard it was that
I haven't.
Alana proposed that time, that date, and hadn't heard back, and that's the last I know of it. So the Conservation Commission on Monday was also asking about it, and I told them, I don't think it's been scheduled, because I don't think we've heard anything back, but that's an Alana question, I think.
I feel like Alana was pushing, you know, some kind of conclusion, but maybe I haven't been tracking that as well as I thought.
I think we originally proposed this meeting as the, you know, date that presentation, we would like that presentation to happen, but Suzanne Peters had already booked with the Lee Planning Board, I think, so she would have been double booked at that point.
For tonight.
For tonight, and then I think Alana responded asking about the May 28th meeting, and that's the last that I've heard of it, so I don't know if there was any agreement on that. Haven't heard.
I can go through my Alana emails that I get and see if she replied only to her and said it was okay. Either way, the board can still suggest that we put it on the agenda for the, you know, at the beginning, and if Alana, if I don't find out and Alana confirms that she can be here, then she'll put it on the agenda. If not, then we'll just have to do this again, have this conversation again at the next meeting. Yeah, because I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head.
So the agenda will be added, so if that comes to pass, it'll be added in there
And I
anyway.
think since we've now moved our meetings back to 6:30, there's not really, it almost obviates this question because we were essentially asking, should we put that first on the agenda at 7 PM before the cases so that it gets done? Now that it's starting at 6:30, should it actually be scheduled for this next meeting? Seems like that fits just fine, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And if it isn't, then we've got other things we can deal with.
Yep.
Okay. So this would be on the agenda, item 5, public comment. So this would be the time that anybody in the public could come forth, have a conversation with the planning board. Seeing there's no public here, we'll move on. But this would be the time. Anybody on the TV would like to come in, have a conversation with the planning board, there is time to do that. We'll make time. Approval of minutes from April 23rd. Anyone review the minutes and have any additional comments?
I had one thing on line 134, where it says reluctance to approve a road. I think it should say reluctance to approve a driveway on a road. That does not exist.
Which line was that?
Line 134.
Yes. Yeah, I remember that conversation, actually.
That was all I had.
Yeah, that's a good one. Good.
Any other items people thought of? Might as well take a motion to approve as amended.
I guess more specifically, that should be driveway easement.
Driveway easement, I'm good with that.
Maybe that's, sorry, approve a driveway easement on a road that does not exist? That make more sense? Right
Yeah.
now, it's approve a driveway easement that does not exist.
A driveway easement on it.
On.
It says
On a road.
that does not. I was just squeezing that in. It was just missing a couple words.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Everybody comfortable with the minutes?
Yep.
Comfortable enough to make a motion to approve them as amended?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of April 23rd, 2025 as amended.
Second?
I'll second, I guess. Can you actually make that,
Huh?
can you make that motion?
As amended?
Or can you make the motion?
As an alternate?
As an alternate.
I think I can discuss anything, but I can't vote. I don't have,
I'll make the motion to approve the
wait,
minutes.
let me check the bylaws.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes of whatever date that was,
April 23rd.
April 23rd, as amended.
Second.
All right, thank you.
Skip, you want a second?
I'm looking.
I'm gonna make a
We might
motion
have a
to
change
sanction
to the
former
rules.
Page
comments.
17, line 46,
That's not in here.
All in favor, indicate aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
Sorry, Skip.
No, it's all right. I just get into it, that's all.
So select board updates.
Oh, that would be me. All right, so we had a hearing about the Stevens Hill Road paving at the last select board meeting. And nobody was opposed to, well, just one guy on a bicycle who wanted to ride his bicycle, didn't want to pave it at all. But it was, people were in favor of making sure that the warrant articles that we did pass was fine to use that for paving Stevens Hill Road. So we are going to move forward with that project. Obviously, there's been lots of discussion about the town beach, so that's in progress still.
John, what is that paving gonna happen on Stevens Hill Road? Do you-
When is it going to happen?
Has that been,
I don't think we have a date yet,
just curious?
but it should happen, you know, as soon as Steve gets.
And that's only between the two pavements.
Right, it's between Deerfield Road and the current pavement only, not the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the new cruisers were ordered. I don't know if people heard that one of them was totaled. So we're getting 2 new cruisers. I think this was probably from last thing about the grader being ordered as well. You know, some of the stuff's carry over from last time. Recycling centers now on summer hours. I don't know if there's anything else that big. Lots going on, but
Any update on, there was some discussion meeting about, the road maintenance thing,
Mindle Road.
Mindle?
We're still trying to work that out with, so Raymond, the town of Raymond said that they came out and declared it as a private road, and that is officially the Raymond Board of Selectmen. That's their stance. It's a private road, and we're still trying to work out what that means for emergency access and stuff like that, getting from Mountain Road through a private road to Mindle Public in Nottingham.
Okay, so nothing from the lawyer back. This is applicable, I live on this road, so I'm aware of this, but it's probably applicable to other projects that may be coming in pretty soon. You know, the,
Gulf Dam.
Acid,
Yep.
you know, where we're trying to, like, what do we have? Is it a road, a town road? Where is it? You know, it's defined, it's kind of messy out there.
You know, I mean, that's messy because
It's going through
it's
Raymond.
through Raymond,
Right.
right.
So
The other project's all Nottingham, so.
So did Bassett go to the, he was supposed to go to the select board too, I think?
Yeah, he came before the select board. Trying to remember what we, did he come before this? No, he didn't come before the select board yet. I don't know. I'm confused. He came before us here. I don't think he came before the select board yet.
He was here, and then he said he was
Hey,
going to the
right, I
select
don't
board
think-
for
I
something
think-
about the road.
I think
so.
that's probably on next week's meeting.
Okay, all right, because that'll bounce back
yeah,
into here
yeah.
pretty soon, and we're gonna
Yes.
have to
I think that's on
react
next
to
week's
it, so,
meeting.
all right, thank you.
Any other board member updates, staff updates?
Yeah.
Lana's not here, but
Yeah.
any other board
Blair,
member?
are you gonna talk about the PREPA grant?
No, go for it, go for it. I can, but
Sure, so, Nottingham applied for a, PREPA grant. It's the Piscataqua Region Estuaries Partnership who, put out a, call for grants. And they had $100,000 in this grant, for towns, I can't remember exactly how many towns, but it was all of them in the Piscataqua watershed essentially, even some that were up in Maine. And they were soliciting projects to essentially update zoning regulations, update natural resource inventories, things like that that would help protect the watershed better. The maximum award amount was $25,000. So Blair put together an awesome application on behalf of the town of Nottingham, and we just heard back earlier this month that we won that award for the full $25,000 that we applied for. And so that is, a lot of that work is going to be updating our natural resource inventory maps, performing vernal pool identification using LiDAR, and a few other things, community outreach, and maybe Blair he wrote the application and the budget, so he might be able to fill in a couple of the rest, but very competitive grant. Like I said, only $100,000 available. We won a quarter of that because we have other grants that we've been awarded recently, and there was a lot of kind of overlap and a good, it was a good time for Nottingham to be doing this work and leveraging the other grants and master plan update that we're in the current process of as well. So that was pretty big for us to win. We definitely need the money to do that. And we're going to be having a scoping meeting with the prep folks, SRPC. I believe Dirk, you're going to be on that meeting too as the chair of the master plan subcommittee and now the planning board.
Okay.
Right?
I've gotten
Tomorrow at 2
committed.
or 3?
Yeah, it's tomorrow.
Yeah. So that'll be happening tomorrow at 3, and I assume we'll be able to report a little bit more on that at the next meeting on what exactly the plan is going to be.
So master plan is part of that?
So part of the master plan update is updating our natural resources
Well,
chapter, and so.
You don't have to do the whole thing all at once.
No, but I think that's, so.
But this
the-
would be
the
appropriate for that.
Conservation Commission, late last year or early this year, was awarded a grant from the New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions to hire an intern to help update some of the NRI, the natural resource inventory that we have in town, because our prior one is from the original natural resource inventory done in this town was like 1998. There was a natural resource inventory chapter update, so new data available, making new maps, and I think it was 2011. So we're pretty outdated on both the natural resource inventory itself and the chapter in our master plan on that. So the Concom kind of started that process, and this grant is going to help us kind of hopefully take it home.
Dirk, do you want to talk about the master plan, that there's an updated meeting that we're gonna take, not just the housing section, but also adopt this and try to,
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, a couple of us are on the master plan committee. I chair that subcommittee. We'll call it a subcommittee of the planning board. We've met, I think, 3 times now. We started to focus on housing because that's what we had a grant for from the Regional Planning Commission to engage them, providing us some services for that. And so that's kind of where we started. We're gonna take just one step back and strategize on the whole master plan. So we're having a meeting May 29th, I believe.
Yep, yeah, that's right.
Is that what it is?
That's correct.
May 29th, just to go back through, just briefly going through all the chapters, just to see what we could tackle over the next course of a year plus, and what chapters really need attention. And now with the grant that we just got for the natural resources, which is a chapter in the master plan, that dovetails really nicely into some of the outreach that is needed. So the community will be, this committee will be reaching out to the community to try and get information on how they like to see the town, how they feel about housing and natural resources. So a survey will go out. We haven't determined timeframes for that, but that will be happening in the next few months, as well as some opportunities at selected events to get information about those. So the master plan committee is trying to meet once a month. Again, May 29th will be our next meeting. It's open to the public. People can come in. We can talk about what the master plan means. Anything else?
I just want to add that SRPC has an annual meeting. This year, it's going to be in Durham, and it's going to be on June 26th. It's at the Brown Center. Trying to,
Where is the Brown Center?
yeah, I'm trying to find the address.
That's out on,
It's like by, it's down off, it's.
you go
Main
across the
property.
river, and then it's off to the right.
Yeah, it's off to the right.
150,
It's,
108?
down by the gas stations,
yeah,
take the left that goes over the bridge.
just Google it.
And it's not UNH, it's UNH, but it's
Okay.
Right,
not
it's,
at
it's,
UNH.
right, exactly.
I'll Google it. Used to be a ropes course, I don't know what it is
There
now.
still is that.
Do you want
That
to
stuff
send
is
us
still there.
an email on that?
Yeah, I'll
You say
So
June?
it's 6,
send out the
26.
invitations. I gotta make sure. Oh, here it is. Yeah, annual luncheon will be held at the Brown Center in Durham.
June 26th? So,
Yeah, at 11 a.m. So, Megan in our office has been organizing it and sent out the invitation today. So it's a little over a month away, but good to get on it. And then on Friday the 13th in June 13th, SRPC is going to be hosting a training with a couple of consultants that we've been working with in Farmington and Milton. And the idea here is to sort of get citizens and board members and elected leaders and staff and stuff, give them some guidance on how to assess town buildings or other like sort of public facilities, public assets that are underutilized, and how to sort of take stock of what's the condition of the building, how to work with the community to engagement, find out what your needs are, what your wants are, what's reasonable for budgets and stuff. And then it kind of gets you in a position to evaluate your facilities or a facility and determine what your next steps are. A lot of times communities don't know what to do. They need to hire someone, but they don't know how much money to put forth. So the idea is to give you some training and some tips on how to do this internally, and then you could either go pursue a grant or find it in your own budget, your CIP, to actually bring in like an architect to do an assessment of the building. Oh, the foundation's wrong, or oh, you need new windows. Or if you want to reprogram how the building's being used, okay, you're going to need to add in a kitchen, or a better heating system or something like that. So, for example, in Milton, they have the old townhouse, which is just like a single room structure. They just don't know what to do with it. It's just sitting there. Occasionally, like a group will have an event there, but it doesn't have any heating. It doesn't have a kitchen. So you really can't do any events. You can't really rent it out. But what would it take to bring it to a place that they could use it? And then the other one was like the town beach in Milton. We looked at that as well. And they wanted to put new bathrooms in. How can you rearrange the parking to make better access, better parking, more visible, and fit the buildings in with a septic tank and that sort of thing. So we did that for them. We're going to use what we did in Farmington and Milton as case studies to do the training, but that's the idea behind it. It might be good for this community because I know,
There might be a couple things that we have here.
yeah,
That building right up there on the right, on that picture.
there was a
Yeah.
gentleman, I think it was Gary Anderson, who was on a community facilities or town facilities committee or something like that, and they finished another report that's on the town website and stuff. And so you guys have obviously started this on some level, so maybe this might help you out. Might be something for your community to come do. We're going to do it. We're going to run it as a hybrid. We're going to be doing it in person at SRPC on Friday the 13th in the morning, but you can watch it online on a Zoom if you want to do it. If you want to do it that way, but that's the idea. So, yeah, that's it for me. Just those couple of items. There's no, I don't have any webinars or anything coming around that I can let you know about, but I always email it to you when that comes towards me. I think there's a hard road to follow, one coming up.
I did that one last year, and it's very well, depends on what you're into, but it's very interesting. But it's like drinking from a fire hose. There's a lot in it. If you've ever seen the book that's referencing, it's
I love
a
that
toad.
book.
Yeah.
You could take that course 4 times, and
Yeah.
still be.
I've read the
Maybe
whole
6
book at least 4 or 5 times.
It's just like a book of nuances.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot. But the seminar helps to, clarify some of it,
Yeah, and for a community like yours, you're emerging. You're not a very thoroughly developed community where you kind of work through all your road issues, but you're not like a community that isn't really seeing any development. As an emerging community, it's going to probably continue to be something this board, this town will continue to see. I mean, we just had Kevin in here, Bassett in here to deal with literally this, and then you guys are dealing with it. I think you're getting ready to accept the road or whatever the final step is or something.
Can we make a motion that he attends that?
Yeah.
The hard
I'm
road
just into
thing.
compelling people to know.
What's the date on that one?
I think it's the 15th. Oh shit, is it tomorrow?
It is tomorrow,
That
as
is
a matter
tomorrow.
of fact.
I just forward them out.
I did not sign up for that
All
one.
right. Yeah. Sorry.
I was like,
That would be New Hampshire Municipal Association if you're interested. Just go
Yeah,
on their
no,
website. You can find it.
I signed up for, I did do, I don't remember which one I did.
And that training one too.
I,
The planning board one.
and then I went to,
I'd be interested in the June 13th one.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Please do.
I can only do so much.
Yeah. So,
Blair, are you ever visiting with, like CMA is reviewing roads that are being developed in the town? Is that correct? They're like,
That's currently who we have as the planning board sub-consultant.
so once we approve it, do we ever see it come, what the status is? I drove up like Pawtuckaway Ridge the other day and I was blown away to see a full framed house up there. And I was like,
Good wording, blown away.
yeah, like, there's not even a road here and there's already a house
well, they
up here.
have two frontage lots.
Pardon me?
They have 2 frontage lots as part of that project.
Two?
2 frontage lots. They don't need a road. The road's already there. It has frontage on that back corner of Pawtucket Ridge. Yeah, it's Fort Hill Road, right?
Oh, no,
No, that's
it's off of 156.
yeah, that's the Smoke Street Fort Hill Road. The Pawtuckaway Ridge one was the
Oh.
Foul Zone
Yeah, I didn't
project
think there was
on
frontage on that.
156.
Okay, my bad.
There's a new road going in off of 156 and up on a mountaintop and you were there.
Former
the site-
mountaintop.
Former mountaintop. And if you go up there, so I guess it just comes to my attention, after seeing the Lipizan where, I was expecting to go up and see a road and there's like mud and,
Yeah, so I think he sold that.
he did, but I
Yeah.
guess the question is, do we ever see or hear back from, like an update
Oh.
from the CMA that, we've approved, we reviewed, we have a
I
problem?
mean, they produce reports, so as
The
part of,
answer is no.
well, yeah,
Planning board.
they just might not be dealing with it to the board. They might be dealing with it through Ellen and Dale.
Right, so
That might be the reason why. So I can follow up.
Yeah, and I agree, it might be, but there's been many meetings we've gone to and nobody knew whether the road had been approved or not. I've
Okay.
asked the question because I'm somewhat familiar with it. And in most cases, nobody knows, okay? It doesn't mean somebody didn't know, but they weren't at the meeting or willing to speak up. But we need to find a different way of approving these roads rather than town meeting. And I don't know the answer to that question.
What are you talking about? I mean, because we approve roads in this, here.
We
No,
don't
accept
approve,
it.
No,
Oh, accepting of of a road as a
Town
town
road.
road?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That has to be done by the legislative body
Right,
per RSA.
I understand that. But that's because most of the developers that come in here choose the open space development, which creates a private road.
Right.
And perhaps there's another way around that, so that it doesn't happen in that manner. Because pretty much everybody's doing open space, for some reason. Granite, wetlands, whatever it is, it's convenient
Right.
to utilize that.
You know, smaller development footprint too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there needs to be some process like that. And what scares me about the house being up on Pawtuckaway Ridge is that if it's anything like, well, that's open space, so that's a private road, okay? And the way I understand it, they can't get a certification of occupancy until the road is brought up to certain specifications.
Yep.
That's what happened here at Camelot Court, where they paved the road on Thanksgiving weekend, and then all of a sudden, everybody could move into their homes. Well, it had never been approved, not even by the town or
And wasn't
anybody.
that one that
Didn't meet specs.
it didn't meet the specs?
We had them tear it up.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It just seems like we should get an update on some of these, our children.
So it's just the CO that they can't get until the road is done, or up to whatever. I thought they couldn't even start.
Well, there's different things. So, the way the RSA reads now is that we cannot require a surety, some kind of guarantee, until they either go to sell a lot or pull a building permit to start a house.
Right, so if they started a house, they hopefully pulled a building permit.
Well, yes. What I think happened is that they put up a surety. Because I think, now that I got corrected on which one I was thinking about. I
Okay.
think is this the Chinberg one?
Chinberg, yes.
Yeah. So Chinberg bought it, and they put up a surety, which didn't make sense to me when I'm watching the emails, because I was thinking about this RSA that said they didn't have to, but it makes sense. If they were wanting to do building construction as the road is being developed, then it makes sense. Put up the surety, because they're pretty well financed, and then they can just sort of do both at the same time,
Right, right.
which they're legally allowed to do,
Okay.
as long as they put the surety up. So that's one thing.
That's the difference.
Then there's the certificate of occupancy. The road has to be signed off on till people can move in,
Right, okay.
for the reasons as you described, making sure that they do it properly. And then there's the town accepting roads,
Right.
which is an entirely different process, and you all just
That's
dis-
complete,
you all
yeah.
just discussed that.
And that's not really relevant to,
To what these examples that we're giving. But I do know that we have we ask CMA to give us contracts to oversee these roads as they're being installed and to do periodic inspections. And my guess is that reports go back to Dale. I haven't seen them. I'm not 100% sure, but I can ask Alana and Dale like what the process is and if we can be copied on it. Is that what you're alluding to?
Yeah, I think so.
It's,
When new
I don't-
roads are being constructed,
I don't think we know what portions of that need to happen, except that when you drive down or walk down one of those roads and all of a sudden you see a house, I haven't seen that, but you see a house, you say, how the hell is this
excuse me, yes.
kind of happen, you know? And, and the one out, Lipizzan or whatever, that was, I had the same feeling as like, where is this subdivision actually going? Do we get a surety on that, by the way? Yeah? The
Which
30
one?
days.
Which
Lipizzan?
I wouldn't see it, like no one would tell me
Oh,
about
okay.
it, but I can follow up.
All right, I mean,
That's a good question.
Again, that's one of those deals. We write these conditions and then we may not ever see what the results were.
I mean, in theory, the conditions are supposed to be like our memo to Dale,
Yeah.
you know? And he's supposed to like look at the conditions as he's reviewing building permit applications or whatever type of application, foundation, whatever it might be.
Right.
So,
And I guess we're not seeing that on this end either, so.
And so to that point, how do, certain conditions sometimes aren't necessarily, something that would be part of the construction process that Dale would be. So the example I'm thinking of is the Pawtucket Ridge project. One of the conditions was that there be a wildlife exclusion fence around, the entirety of the construction site. And so I was unsure where in the process there would be any check for that to be installed before, I think it was April 1st of, the year, if construction were to start. And so I called Dale to ask him, and he, verified that it had been installed before April 1st or by April 1st. But, aside from him putting that like on his calendar or something to check by April 1st, how do we know that that condition is actually being, done correctly at the right time that it's specified?
Especially if there's like a 38-page plan set, and it may not be a condition of approval, it might be page 17, a note in the top corner that we didn't catch. Skip would catch.
I mean, one, your residents here, you're all welcome to reach out to Dale at any time, right? If you have multiple questions, maybe try to consolidate it to one email, so you are all more than welcome to do that, as you just did, right? So that's one thing. On Dale's end, I don't know what his process is, but, us putting things in the conditions does pull it out and make it more apparent to him, also to the applicant. That's what Ed was talking about by saying you got 12 months to exercise this permit or come back and get an extension. Remember, we were running into that with a few projects. So he started making that as a condition, so it was quite clear. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what other methodology there, what other method there would be.
Yeah, and I want to be clear that my comments weren't a suggestion that Dale might not be
Yeah,
on
sure.
it. It was more that, to me, there seems like a gap that things could fall through, potentially. So maybe we should just think about it more if there is something that could be done.
Get
to help close some
an
of those
update
gaps.
once in a while on ongoing projects from CMA. Would that be?
Well, CMA, yes, I think, because at the very least, if they're sending a report to, say, Ellen, Dale, road agent, any one of the combination of that, just CC us, just CC Alana, me, right? That's one thing that could happen quite easily, and then if it comes to me, I just blast it out to all of you. So I think that's easy, because CMA, I think, is supposed to provide reports. As opposed to, compared to, just sort of ensuring that things are getting done, I don't have an answer on that one. And maybe that's something, through the chair, you communicate to Dale to say, what's the process, how can we help? Or if we ask Dale if he can come in, or maybe this is something we do in August when we have the
Yeah,
joint
that's
board
what I was gonna
meeting.
suggest.
There's a couple of different options there.
Yeah, the last one, Dale came to us with a bunch of suggestions on how we could make things easier for him, so we should return the favor this time.
Yeah.
What are we doing though?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
I mean, this year we did get a decent amount of zoning amendments passed, but yeah, that list keeps growing.
We good?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We're only 7 minutes past our stop time.
Ah.
Pretty good,
Beautiful,
pretty good.
Nice.
especially with the late start, 7.
Anybody opposed? All right, let's go.
Thank you, Chair.